Hello and good evening friends, my name is Shankar Vaidya. I am here with you in my today's video topic is the keys and constraints in SQL. So today is my first video on SQL topic. So basically I am going to give you the information about keys and constraints of in SQL. So what is keys and what is constraints? Keys and constraints are the main important part of database. So basically, a database consists of or contains equality and establish equality of your database is performed on the basis of your keys and constraints. So what is key and what is constraints? This is basically keys and constraints are similar, but the main difference is that constraints can be applied over a certain column of your database, and keys are the special um, cer- special certains of your database that can be used for special scenarios or some certain scenarios. So constraints can be uh, constraints can be used over your one table or more than one table of your database, or entire entity like entire scheme of your table your database, or whole database can be used as a constraints. So this is the main function of constraints and keys. So basically, the keys and constraints are the main rules or the defining rules of your database structures, or you can say that database can be implemented with the help of keys and constraints only, because keys and constraints are the rules to define a particular database. It means how your database is going to be allowed, which kind of data or which kind of data can be stored, or over which kind of column in your database. It can be different, it can be determined over keys and constraints only. So this is the main function of keys and constraints in your database, that keys and constraints are main part of your database designing as well as database construction. So database designing is nothing but you can say that you can allow you how what kind of data you can allow in your database, and where you want to store that data. It means in which table of your database can be stored. That particular data is defined by keys and constraints. So constraints can, as earlier I told, that constraints can be constraints can be used on one particular table of your database, or over the whole scheme of your database, or whole database can be used over constraints. So the constraints, the main function of constraints is that you can say that with the help of constraints you are able to allow, or you are able to store the data but on particular table of your database, and it can be managed your data in particular table. And the keys are specially used to determine the uniqueness and relationship between your database and tables in your database. So this is all about today's video topic, that is keys and constraints. So there are two or three types of keys basic mainly used in SQL, as well as two types of constraints. Keys are uh, foreign keys, unique keys, and some certain keys like constraint keys used in SQL, and constraints are unique constraints and not null constraints are there in SQL. So this is all about today's video topic. Thank you so much.